Hi everybody, welcome to Be a Tech Pro. I'm Kevin and today we are talking about data engineers. So data engineers use tools such as SQL, NoSQL, data lakes, delta lakes, lake houses, not that type of lake house, but they can do it while sitting at the lake house. So they use all programming languages such as C#, Java, Python, to name a few. And really they're looking at moving data from point A to point B. That's really what data engineers are doing. So let's use an example of a company which you've started, which is going to have the live scores of the games in the English Premier League, right? So you're gonna have the live scores of Manchester United and Liverpool. So as an event happens, you need to get that data into your system. So what your data engineers would do is they would contact the EPL in England and they'll say, listen here, we need to get some live data. Can you give it to us? And maybe the EPL will say, well, fine, we have this system called Kafka, and Kafka is an event streaming system. So you can connect to that, and every time something happens, which means every time someone scores, someone's offside, we will then send you that event. So every time something happens, that's called an event, right? So they say, okay, cool, you can connect to that. So they give the information to your company, and now you need to figure out how to actually make this thing work, right? So you give it to your data engineers. They will now go and create a Kafka consumer, and a consumer is basically just a program that's going to go and connect to that Kafka server at the EPL, and it's going to pull down the data. That's really all it's doing, right? So your data engineer will choose probably Python or C# to create a consumer. That consumer is now going to download that data, and it's going to put that data into your system. So once the data is into your system, now you're going to decide, well, we actually want to share this data with our data scientists, and we want to share it with our web guys, and we want to share it with a whole of other guys, right? So traditionally we'd put this into a SQL database like SQL Server or Oracle, and so maybe you first put it into there and you have it working fine. Your web application is connecting to SQL, getting the data to show to your clients. The mobile app is doing the same thing, and the data scientists are also running off there. But the data scientists are, for whatever reason, running big models, because that's generally what they do. And so they're saying, well, listen, it's taking too long, we need some other ways of doing this. So the data engineers would then look at a different process. Maybe they'll look at a NoSQL data store. And NoSQL is something like MongoDB, for example. It's different to SQL in that there's no schema, so there's no structure. So it's very loose. So if you think about a text file, for example, there's no structure. You can just write whatever you want to in a text file. Same thing with a NoSQL data store. You can just start writing whatever data you want to in there and it will just work. Now, anyone who's already in the industry will tell you that this is very similar to what a BI developer will do. So BI stands for Business Intelligence, and Business Intelligence will do something very similar in that they'll create ETL packages. ETL is extract, transform, and load. It will go to a source and get the data, and it will load it into a system so that other systems can then use it down the line. So what is the actual difference between BI and data engineers? Well, let's have a look at the BI stack first. So on BI, you have your ETLs, like I mentioned. You also then have data warehousing, which is very similar to what the data engineers were doing, like creating the data lakes and delta lakes and all those type of things. And then from there it goes on to more of the analysis side of stuff. So they go into your cubes and your reports and Power BI dashboards and Tableau dashboards and all those type of things. So the BI stack is sort of a data engineer with some analysis attached to it, if you think about it. So they create these pipelines, and then they also do some reports and dashboards at the end of that as well. So they'll also do some more digging into the actual data to see why there are anomalies and why certain things are not adding up, for example, right? So that's what your typical BI devs would do. Your data engineer, on the other hand, would mainly focus on the first part on the BI side, which is your ETL portion. They would also do ETLs, but they will do something that's, like we mentioned earlier on, of consumers. And those consumers will be more for live transactions, okay? So those consumers connect to Kafka, like in our example. It will also connect to Azure Event Hub and other type of data streaming services to get events as they happen. So instead of having to wait a day or an hour or a couple of minutes, it happens instantaneously. Okay, sometimes within a few split seconds. That's quite fast. as opposed to the ETL on the BI side, which is more batch based. So generally what that means is that they'll run a batch every day, maybe once a day, maybe every hour, maybe every 5 minutes. So it's always a batch at a time. That's never a constant streaming type of system. So that's typically what the BI guys work with, as opposed to the data engineers. Now what we've seen is that a lot of the BI devs have been asked to actually start working with things like Kafka and Azure Event Hub. And that sort of means that you may already be a data engineer, you just don't have the title, right? So how do you actually fill in the missing pieces? Well, you've already got the ETL portion, you've got the Kafka consumer side, which means that you're already doing some C# and Python, right? So you pretty much are already filling in the part of the data engineer. Maybe what you want to start adding into your arsenal is some other toolkits, such as your data lakes and your data lakes, and you want to start looking at Azure and AWS for their big data solutions and their big data stores as well, and that will sort of allow you to move from a BI role to a data engineer role. Okay, maybe you are starting from fresh and this is the first tech video you're looking at, you have absolutely no idea what any of these words mean, and you're wondering, where do I actually start? So start with this. SQL. This is the main language of relational databases. Anyone working in the data industry needs to know SQL. That is number one priority. Okay. Once you've done that, choose a programming language. So Python or C#. Those are my two preferences. There are other languages like Java and C++ and all those type of things. I think C++ is overkill. Python is a very nice one because it's very easy to learn. C# is also a very nice one. I prefer C#, but either one of those two is perfectly fine. Okay, that will help you to start creating applications for consuming data, for producing data, and for creating other raw data pipelines and deployment pipelines and all those type of things. Learn either of those languages. It's very powerful. It's going to help you in the long run. After that, learn something on the storage side of things. So like I said, NoSQL data source, for example. MongoDB is a great example of that. It's probably the most popular open source NoSQL data store at the moment. So that's a nice one. Download that, play around with it at home, create some applications, just play around and see how it stores that. That uses JSON to store the data, which is a sort of a text format of storing the data. Like I mentioned previously, it's no structure, so you can just add things as you go along, and it's very, very easy to use. There are other NoSQL data stores as well online. For example, there's Azure has Cosmos DB. That is a paid system. That's also very powerful. There's different methods of storage, and they have a couple of exams and courses that you can do. I'll link some of those in the description for you to have a look. And I think once you've done all those things that I mentioned, you're going to be in a very good position to start applying for some junior data engineer positions. Like I mentioned, it's a very new job type, so they're not necessarily looking for people with like 10-20 years of experience, but it will help you if you have a lot of SQL experience or C# and Python experience, because it's more of a programming position as opposed to a data analysis one. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it valuable. If you did, please click on that like button, and also click on the subscribe and the bell notification so that you can be aware of new videos coming up. We are going to be adding a lot more in the future of data engineers, databases, Kafka, C#, all those type of things. But we're also going to talk about the other softer side of the dev side. So things like imposter syndrome, how to actually get your first job, how to move up from junior to intermediate to senior to a lead to an architect. This is the channel we want to be on. Okay, so thanks for watching and have a great day.